So, Jesse, I'm very glad that you were able to take this call, and we got a few very interesting yet challenging topics to discuss today. And our audience is really looking forward to hear your opinion. And the first thing I
Mhm.
want to start with is, of course, the name on your shirt, opt
Ah,
out, because some
opt
people
out.
have been wondering, what do you mean exactly by opt out? Do you want to explain a little bit?
Yeah, opt out. It's quite easy to understand, but it's also very relative. So the way you can opt out, it's very different the way I can opt out. But basically, what nowadays opt out means is to, for example, liberation, because unfortunately, liberty, freedom, it needs a type of liberation. So when you opt out, I don't know, a system, a religion, a country, a culture, everything, it's up to you and it's up to the decision you make in your life. So it's not the same for everyone because we all come from different backgrounds and contexts and also beliefs, and we all have the power to decide by ourselves. And I think that the power of internet and opinions right now, it's really strong. So everything that causes us stress, and somehow we want to liberate ourselves. And so we can just investigate and invest time and try to somehow opt out. Of course, it's really difficult to get out of a system. So it's up to you. Actually, opt out, it's different from everyone, but it's something also new. So I think people are learning how to escape from some systems, but we never know. So it's up to everyone to opt out.
I totally agree with that. And
Mhm.
if you want to get ahead in life and business, if you want to become a high achiever, you definitely have to surrender some not so wanted habits. So I can relate to what you're saying. Let's get started talking about the first really, really important topic, which we already started, but it's politics, right? It's
Mhm.
the polarization in politics, which has caused friendships to fail, which has caused relationships to fail, and even partnerships in business as well. So, guys, this is a really important subject because politics, it affects us all. It affects all areas of life, pretty much, whether that's a friendship, whether that's, if you're having a conversation with a parent, whether that's your children, whether you're in school, like politics is being talked everywhere and anywhere today. There's really few exceptions far in between. And something that's really interesting here is something that was sent to me by Jesse. So, and what's interesting here is I have this open. It's a research report published by Goldberg Jones. And it talks about how divorces in America, right? How they happen. And this report specifically discusses how roughly, I mean, in this very instance here, it talks about how, for instance, 6,000 people, that were studied in a poll, and 16 of those responded that they stopped talking to a friend or family member as a direct result of the election. So here we can already see that people are extremely polarized today. They're either completely left, right? They're
Mhm.
completely, for instance, for open borders. They're completely for amnesty. They are completely for immigrants coming in, whatever the
Mhm.
reasons behind that support may be. Or they are the polar opposite, right? They're completely against it. For instance, Republicans in the US, but also in Europe, right? The right wing party. So it's like there's no healthy center approach anymore, right? And I talked with a friend about this, and he was telling me, and he is already in his 70s right now, and he was telling me how in the 60s and 70s, so that was a time when he grew up. He was born, I think, 1950 or 1949. So in the 60s and 70s, so he was a teenager to, you know, like in his 20s, and he was telling me about how politics in America back then, it was just a more center approach. The reporting was a lot more accurate than it is today, and people were not so polarized. Like today, you're either a Republican or you're a Democrat, but there's nothing healthy in the middle anymore. Anyway, this report goes on here, And this is where it gets very interesting. One thing I want to say about polls, though, or surveys, right? They just take a very small number of people. And the question is always, who are the people that are being surveyed, right? It's like 1,000 people, but where do those people hang out? What's the education of those people? Where did they find those people? Did they find them outside a shopping mall where they had some burgers? Or did they find those people like in a school, right? So the question is always how those people are being surveyed. But here it says that, I'm going to quote this, quote, their collected data indicates that 11% of Americans, more than 1 in 10, have ended relationships over political differences. And then it goes on here. For younger generations, this number climbs steeply. According to the responses, 22% of millennials, so that's my generation. I'm a millennial, right? Millennials are now, what, like, I think 27 to 39 years old, roughly. It says here, quote, more than 1/5 have ended a romantic relationship because of politics. Isn't that absolutely crazy? Because before we thought, hey, relationships, they ended because of very different problems, right? Monetary problems, right? Financial issues. We're talking about infidelity, right? You cheat on your partner, you cheat on your husband, your wife. And typically that's how the relationship ends. It's one of the reasons, right? But there's also other problems, right? People have addictions, drinking problems, drug problems. So people end relationships for all kinds of issues. But these numbers here, I think they're pretty high, considering that out of 100%, that 22% of the younger generation ended a relationship because of politics, because of simple disagreements, because they could not get on the same page, they could not sort out their differences. It's just mind-boggling to me. And I wanted to get your opinion now on this, Jesse. And
Mhm.
you can relate to this because you are from Paraguay. And as you know, Europeans have moved to Paraguay for a long time, for centuries, right? And one
Mhm.
of the biggest reasons why Europeans have moved to Paraguay in the past was because of political issues in Europe, for instance, right? War, or just like political uh, issues that they had back there. So, and back then. So, what do you see today? Like, how does this picture mirror the past picture and also the data that we just analyzed here on this page?
In Paraguay, we don't, I think personally, I cannot talk to all the Paraguayans, but personally, I see that we don't have yet so much polarization. And I also searched from some studies, and this polarization, it's like you said, like more, you can see more this polarization inside of American countries or Western countries, but not yet in South American countries. And in Paraguay, I think that normally, of course, we have some political parties and also we have some sort of polarization, but it's not affecting yet relationships, for example. Of course, you can see disagreements of generational differences. For example, a son with their parents, they have, of course, political differences, which I think it's pretty normal because life is changing really fast. And also through internet, I think that most young people or millennial, we are somehow acquiring or having this new type of culture and knowledge and even personality very similar. So, but when it comes to politics and polarization, I think that Paraguayans are yet having some sort of traditional way of life. So families and relationships are not capitalized and they are really strong yet because we have like religion, culture, uh, and I think that we are a very Catholic country, so that's also very, it's influencing our way of life and the way we see relationships, not only between a woman and a man or romantic relationship, but inside of a family. I think that it's really, really important to have a healthy relationship. And normally, what people always advise, and I think this is worldwide, the advice is that don't talk about religion and politics, which it's quite true. So in Paraguay, normally we apply this. So if we don't want to have some disagreements that can provoke the split of a family, for example, we will totally avoid it, or we are going to try to solve it or talk about it, but never split yet. I think that this is now the reality in Paraguay, mostly like I'm saying to you, that it's because people is more traditional, religion here is really strong, and the family culture also is really appreciated yet here in Paraguay. But I can talk about my own relationships and my family. So personally, this is my experience, but also what I can see most in Paraguay right now. Mhm.
It's interesting how
Mhm.
polarized everything has become. It was
Mhm.
never like that before. And I think the media wants us to fight so that we are more concentrated on ourselves. And if they're creating civil unrest, it's actually good for them because it really distracts from the core foundational issues that our world is currently experiencing. So it draws attention away from the government and it puts attention to minority groups, for instance, if that is an issue right now, or for instance, politics, or for instance, COVID vaccines, right? So they are drawing attention to
Mhm.
different things. So nobody's looking at the government. And I think that's been going on now for a couple of years, and it's quite frustrating, actually.
Subscribe now and turn on alerts to never miss any of my future nomadism, dating, and business advice videos. Thank you for watching.